The war room of the Velither flagship hummed with quiet satisfaction. Admiral Veltros watched the holographic display with his 3 eyes, each one tracking a different section of the blue planet below, Earth, the home of humanity. And in precisely 4 hours it would become their grave. "All fleets report ready status," his tactical officer announced. The voice carried no emotion, only cold efficiency. Around the circular chamber, representatives from the 5 species of the Velither consortium stood in their respective sections. The Chromoth, with their thick armored hides. The Genva, their pale skin almost glowing with telepathic energy. The Saranth, insectoid and precise. The Dakari, aquatic creatures in their specialized environmental suits. And of course the Velither themselves, tall and crystalline, their bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns. They had all agreed. Humanity was too dangerous to live. Veltros had spent 30 years studying the humans. His entire adult life dedicated to understanding these strange bipedal creatures, who had emerged from their little planet only 2 centuries ago. What he found terrified him. Humans were adaptable beyond any species the galaxy had ever known. They thrived in environments that would kill most civilizations. They bred quickly, learned faster, and most disturbing of all, they never gave up in simulations run by the consortium's best tactical computers. Every scenario where humanity was allowed to continue ended the same way. Within 500 years, humans would dominate the galaxy. Within 1,000, they would rule it. Not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through sheer stubborn persistence and their unsettling ability to turn any situation to their advantage. The consortium had debated for decades. Some argued for containment. Others suggested cultural integration. But Veltros had convinced them of the only logical solution. Humanity had to be eliminated, not conquered, not enslaved. Completely erased from existence, they called it the culling. "Begin the operation," Veltros commanded. The holographic display lit up with thousands of red markers. Antimatter warheads launched from orbital platforms that had been secretly positioned over the past decade. The consortium had been patient, using trade agreements and diplomatic missions to place their weapons exactly where they needed them. Humans, trusting and eager to join the galactic community, had welcomed them. That trust would be their end. The first warhead struck Beijing. The explosion was visible from space, a brilliant flash that vaporized everything within 50 kilometers. Then London. Then New York, Moscow, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Lagos, one by one. Earth's major cities disappeared in flowers of nuclear fire. Simultaneously, biological weapons deployed across the planet. Viruses designed specifically for human physiology, invisible and unstoppable. Released into water supplies, air systems, agricultural centers. Within hours, the plague would spread to every corner of the globe. In the war room, the consortium representatives watched in silence. Some felt satisfaction. Others felt grim necessity. None felt joy. This was not conquest. This was extermination of a threat before it could fully awaken. Casualty estimates? Veltros asked. 90% of the human population eliminated in the first wave, the tactical officer reported. Biological agents spreading according to projections. Remaining population centers will fall within 48 hours. Veltros nodded slowly. It was done. Humanity would be extinct within a week. The galaxy was safe. Then something changed. The holographic display flickered. New markers appeared, blue ones, rising from locations across Earth, not from cities but from oceans, from mountain ranges, from beneath the ice caps of Antarctica, from the deserts of Australia and Africa. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. What am I seeing? Veltros demanded, his crystalline body shifting color to dark purple. The Velither expression of confusion. "Unknown structures activating across the planet," the tactical officer said, his voice no longer calm. "They're enormous. Energy signatures are... This is impossible. These readings are higher than anything in our databases." The Genva representative stepped forward, her telepathic senses reaching out. "I sense no panic from the surface. No terror, no despair." Her voice trembled. "I sense Anticipation. Check our surveillance archives, Veltros ordered. How did we miss installations of this size? The tactical officer's hands moved rapidly over his controls. Admiral, we didn't miss them. They weren't there. Our satellites have monitored Earth continuously for 30 years. These structures did not exist yesterday. Impossible. Nothing this large can be built in a day. Then they were hidden, sir. Shielded somehow. Technology beyond our detection capabilities. The war room fell silent. Beyond their detection capabilities. Humans were supposed to be primitive. They had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Their energy weapons were crude. Their ships were slow. Everything the Consortium had observed for 3 decades pointed to a civilization in its infancy. A communication signal pierced through all frequencies, overriding every channel the Consortium fleet used. A human face appeared on the holographic display. Male, middle-aged, with gray hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations. "Greetings, Velither Consortium," the human said. His voice was conversational, almost friendly. "My name is General Marcus Chun, Commander of Earth Defense Protocol Ozymandias. We've been expecting you." Veltros felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear, the human continued. 30 years ago, when you began your surveillance of Earth, we noticed. You weren't as subtle as you thought. We analyzed your patterns, predicted your intentions, and prepared accordingly. Chun smiled, but the expression held no warmth. Everything you've seen of humanity for the past 3 decades has been a performance. A carefully constructed illusion designed to make you feel confident, to make you think we were weak, to make you gather your entire fleet in one convenient location. "He's bluffing," the Chromath representative growled. "Humans lie. It's their nature." "Protocol Ozymandias is now active," Chun continued, as if he had heard the Chromath's words. "The animator strikes you just delivered? Thank you. We've channeled that energy into our primary defense grid. Your biological weapons? We've been inoculated for 20 years. The casualties you're seeing are staged. The people who died today are currently safe in shelters we built specifically for this moment." The holographic display changed, showing images from Earth's surface. What appeared to be destroyed cities were transforming. Holographic projections faded away, revealing intact structures beneath. Bodies that sensors had read as dead were standing up, removing protective gear, waving at the satellites above. "You came to our home to commit genocide," Chun said, and now his voice carried an edge of cold anger. "You gathered every ship, every soldier, every resource you could spare. You put all your pieces on the board." He leaned forward. "And you walked straight into our trap." The structures rising from Earth's oceans and mountains began to glow. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the Consortium fleet. "Now," Chun said quietly, "let me show you what humanity looks like when we stop pretending." The transmission ended. Veltros stared at the display, watching those thousands of blue markers pulse with power. 30 years of surveillance. 30 years of planning. 30 years of confidence that humanity was understood, predicted, controlled. All of it had been a lie. "Get us out of here," Veltros ordered, his voice barely a whisper. "Full retreat, now." "Sir, the wormhole drives won't activate. Something's blocking them." Veltros closed his 3 eyes. They had come to Earth to eliminate a threat. Instead, they had sprung the trap of an enemy far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The hunter had become the prey. The emergency council meeting aboard the Velither flagship was chaos. 5 species, all speaking at once, all demanding answers that nobody had. Admiral Veltros stood at the center of the circular chamber, his crystalline body flickering between colors as his emotions shifted too rapidly to control. "Silence," he commanded, his voice amplified through the ship's systems. The chamber fell quiet. "We need information. What exactly are we facing?" The chief intelligence officer, a Saranth named Kliktak, approached the central display. Her insectoid features were rigid, but Veltros could hear the nervous clicking of her mandibles. Admiral, we've analyzed the human transmission and cross-referenced it with our historical surveillance data. The results are disturbing. The holographic display changed, showing Earth's timeline over the past century. In 2087, humanity had first contact with the Brelanoth, a minor species from the Outer Rim. The encounter went poorly. 3 human ships were destroyed. According to our records, this convinced humans they were outmatched and they retreated from deep space exploration. We know this already, the Chromath representative rumbled impatiently. Yes, but we misunderstood what happened next, Kliktak continued. We believe humans pulled back out of fear. We were wrong. They pulled back to prepare. The timeline expanded, showing a web of connections. After 2087, human behavior changed in subtle ways. Their technology development slowed publicly, but their resource consumption increased dramatically. They began mining operations in their asteroid belt that seemed inefficient by our standards. They built structures on their moon that appeared to be simple research stations. Get to the point, Veltros said. Those mining operations were excavating materials for underground construction. Those lunar research stations were actually shipyards. Everything humanity showed us was a facade? They deliberately kept certain technologies hidden. Kliktak's display zoomed in on specific data points. Their quantum computing capabilities are at least 2 centuries beyond what they demonstrated. Their understanding of exotic matter manipulation exceeds our own, and their dimensional physics research. She paused. Admiral, they've been studying wormhole technology since 2090. They know exactly how to disrupt it. The war room fell silent. The implication was clear. Humanity had been playing a game of deception for over a century, and the consortium had been completely fooled. How is this possible? The Geneva representative asked, her telepathic voice echoing in everyone's minds. We monitored their communications. We infiltrated their networks. We watched them constantly. They knew we were watching, Kliktak said simply. They fed us exactly what they wanted us to see. Every transmission we intercepted, every bit of data we stole, all of it was carefully curated. They created an entire false version of their civilization for our benefit. Veltros felt his core temperature dropping, a physical response to the creeping horror he felt. The cities we destroyed. Tell me about the cities. Kliktak manipulated the display, showing cross-sections of Earth's surface. Every major population center we targeted was built directly above massive subterranean facilities. When our antimatter warheads struck, the explosions were real. But the humans had already evacuated. The underground structures were designed to absorb and redirect the energy from our weapons. They used our own attack to power their defense systems. Impossible, the Dakari representative gurgled through its translator. We would have detected underground structures of that magnitude. Not if they were shielded with technology we can't detect, Kliktak countered. And the biological weapons we deployed? We've intercepted human medical records dating back 15 years showing widespread inoculation programs. They claimed it was for various diseases, but the genetic markers match our bioweapons perfectly. They knew what we were developing and vaccinated their entire population in advance. The Chromath slammed his massive fist against the wall. Then the casualties we measured? Staged. Holographic projections, thermal decoys, corpses created from synthetic materials. Sensors can be fooled if you know exactly what they're looking for. Kliktak's mandibles clicked rapidly. The 10% of the population we detected as survivors? They're military personnel. Every single one. Trained soldiers pretending to be desperate civilians. Veltros moved to the display, studying the data. His mind, trained for strategic analysis, began piecing together the full picture. This was a trap from the beginning. They wanted us to attack. Yes, Admiral. We believe Protocol Ozymandias was designed specifically to bait us into a genocide attempt. By making themselves appear vulnerable, they ensured we would commit our full forces to a single strike. They turned our strength into our weakness. Where is the real human population? Veltros asked quietly. The display shifted again, showing new data. Underground cities throughout Earth, some built kilometers beneath the surface. We're also detecting signs of off-world colonies. Mars has a hidden population of approximately 800 million. Several moons of Jupiter and Saturn show thermal signatures consistent with massive underground habitats. They've been evacuating their population for decades, moving them to locations we never thought to check. The Saranth intelligence officer pulled up more files. We've also found evidence of human presence in 23 star systems we believed were uninhabited. They've been expanding quietly, always staying just below our detection threshold. The primitive colony ships we occasionally observed, they were decoys. The real colony vessels use stealth technology we can't match. How many humans are there, really? The Genva representative asked, her mental voice trembling. Our previous estimate was 15 billion, all on Earth. Current estimate based on this new data, somewhere between 40 and 60 billion, spread across multiple star systems. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. The entire consortium combined had a population of 30 billion. Humanity, the species they thought they were exterminating, outnumbered them. And they had been hiding it perfectly. Voltros felt the full weight of their mistake. The consortium had come to eliminate a threat before it could fully develop. But the threat had already developed. It had simply been patient enough to hide until the perfect moment. What are those structures on Earth? He asked. The ones that activated after our strike. Kliktak pulled up sensor data, though it was obviously incomplete. We can't get clear readings. Energy signatures are too high. But based on the positioning and power output, we believe they're weapons platforms. Each one generating more power than our entire fleet combined. Weapons platforms hidden for a century, powered by our own attack, and now targeting us. Voltros said, speaking his thoughts aloud. They've trapped our fleet in the solar system with wormhole disruptors. They've revealed capabilities we can't match. And they've been planning this since before any of us were born. He turned to face the council. We came here believing we were the intelligent ones, making a difficult but necessary choice. We thought we were preventing a future threat. But we were the ones being manipulated. Humanity has been conducting the greatest intelligence operation in galactic history, and we never even knew we were the targets. The Chromath representative's voice was subdued for the first time. What do we do now? Before Valtros could answer, every screen in the war room activated simultaneously. General Qian's face appeared again, and this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood dozens of humans in military uniforms, and behind them, holographic displays showed the massive weapons platforms across Earth humming with ready power. Velethor Consortium, Chun said, his voice calm and professional. You came to our home with genocide in your hearts. You believed we were weak. You believed we were unprepared. You believed you understood us. His expression hardened. It's time you learned what humanity is truly capable of. The real war begins now. The transmission ended, and Veltros knew with absolute certainty that the consortium had made the worst mistake in its 1,000-year history. They had tried to kill humanity in its cradle, but humanity had never been in a cradle. It had been sharpening knives in the dark, waiting for them to arrive. The first strike came from nowhere, the Chromath supply convoy, stationed 3 million kilometers from Earth, simply ceased to exist. One moment, 17 massive cargo vessels filled with ammunition and provisions. The next moment, empty space and expanding clouds of debris. Report! Admiral Veltros demanded, his crystalline body flashing alarm red. Unknown weapons fire, sir. No energy signature detected before impact. The mines were quantum-entangled devices. They were already inside the convoy. The tactical officer's voice was shaking. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. Similar attacks on supply lines, repair stations, fuel depots. They're hitting everything simultaneously. Voltros pulled up the tactical display. Red markers were disappearing across the entire solar system. Ships he had positioned carefully over months were vanishing in clusters. How many have we lost? 40% of our supply chain in the first 60 seconds, sir. Still counting. The Dakari representative's breathing tank bubbled frantically. Impossible. Those supply routes extend back to the wormhole entry point. They would need weapons pre-positioned along a route that spans billions of kilometers. They did position them, Veltros said, understanding dawning. Years ago. Those civilian trading vessels that visited our space, the ones we inspected and cleared, they were planting these weapons the entire time. We've been sitting in a minefield for years and they've just activated it. Another alarm blared through the war room. This time it was the Sarth battle group, positioned near Mars. Their ships began reporting system failures across their entire fleet. Nanophages, the Sarth representative clicked in horror. They're deploying nanophages, designed specifically for our hull materials. The humans had decades to study our ships. They built weapons that target our exact metallurgical composition. Voltros watched helplessly as the Sarth fleet tried to fight the invisible attackers. Microscopic machines were eating through their armor like acid through paper. Ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to scrap in minutes. Some captains tried to evacuate. Most didn't make it to the escape pods before their vessels fell apart around them. All ships, defensive formation, Veltros ordered. Activate close-range shielding. Prepare for human counterattack. But the attack wasn't coming from where he expected. The weapons platforms on Earth remained still, their enormous power signatures pulsing steadily but not firing. Instead, new contacts appeared on sensors. Ships, human ships. Hundreds of them. These weren't the crude vessels the consortium had observed during surveillance. These ships were sleek, angular, and fast. They moved with a precision that spoke of decades of training. And they appeared from locations throughout the solar system, emerging from stealth-like predators revealing themselves to cornered prey. Where did they come from? The Genva representative whispered telepathically. They've been here the whole time, Voltros realized, watching us, studying our formation, waiting for the perfect moment. The human fleet struck like a surgical blade. They didn't engage in massed combat or overwhelming force. Instead, each attack was precisely calculated. They targeted the Velethur's communication relays, knowing that crystalline species relied on networked consciousness for battlefield coordination. They used frequency weapons that shattered Velethur bodies at the molecular level, turning proud warriors into clouds of crystal dust. Against the Chromoth, they deployed kinetic weapons that ignored their heavy armor, striking with such force that the impact liquefied the tissue beneath. The Chromoth had evolved armor to protect against energy weapons. They had no defense against relativistic projectiles. The Genva found their telepathic abilities useless. Worse than useless. The human ships broadcast psionic jamming signals. That didn't just block telepathy but turned it into a weapon. Genva crew members across the fleet began screaming, clutching their heads as their own mental abilities were reflected back at them, amplified and weaponized. Some went insane. Others simply shut down, their minds unable to process the feedback. They know our weaknesses, the Chromoth representative said, stating the obvious. All of them. Every species in the consortium. 30 years of surveillance, Veltros said bitterly. We thought we were studying them. They were studying us. A human fleet element approached the Velethur flagship. Voltros braced for attack, but instead his communication system activated again. A different human face this time. Female, younger than General Chun, with sharp green eyes and captain's insignia. Velethur flagship, this is Captain Sarah Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I'm here to deliver a message. Her voice was cold, professional. You came to kill our families, our children. You spent 30 years planning genocide. You thought you were smart? You thought you were careful, she leaned forward. Did you know we have files on each of you personally? Admiral Veltros, we know about your daughter on Velis Prime, Commander Grath. We know about your mate and 3 offspring on Chromoth Station. Telepath Zenva, we know about your breeding cluster on the homeworld. The war room went silent. Morrison continued. We know where your families live. We know their daily routines. We know their favorite foods, their friends, their fears. We've been watching all of you as closely as you watched us. She smiled, and it was a predator's expression. You came to our home, now you get to wonder if we're visiting yours? The transmission cut off? Veltros felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. Not just fear, but terror. The humans weren't just defeating them militarily. They were conducting psychological warfare on a level the consortium had never imagined. "Sir, the human fleet is moving into attack formation," the tactical officer reported. "All ships, prepare." "For engagement," Veltros ordered, but his voice lacked confidence. How did you fight an enemy that had been preparing for this exact battle for a century? An enemy that knew every weakness, every tactic, every psychological vulnerability? The human ships moved with synchronized precision. They didn't mass their forces or rely on overwhelming numbers. Instead, they fought like surgeons, each strike calculated for maximum effect. A Dakari cruiser tried to retreat into deeper water pressure zones where humans couldn't follow. Human torpedoes adjusted their approach, releasing specialized drones that could operate in any environment. The cruiser was breached in 17 locations simultaneously. A Saranth squadron attempted to use their superior maneuverability. The human ships predicted their movements with uncanny accuracy, laying traps that the Saranth flew into without seeing them. It was as if the humans could read minds better than the telepathic Jinva. They probably could, Veltros realized. With a century of preparation and quantum computing capabilities beyond consortium technology, the humans could simulate any battle scenario before it happened. They weren't reacting to consortium tactics. They had already predicted them. "Admiral, we're being hailed," the communications officer said. "It's General Chun again." Chun's face appeared once more. Behind him, holographic displays showed the battle from the human perspective. The consortium fleet was color-coded in red, slowly being dismantled piece by piece. "Admiral Veltros, I'm giving you one chance," Chun said. "Order your fleet to stand down. Surrender unconditionally, face trial for attempted genocide. It's the only way any of you survive the next hour." "And if we refuse?" Veltros asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we demonstrate why you were right to fear us in the first place." Chun's expression was granite hard. "You came here to exterminate humanity. You don't get to complain about the consequences. Choose now, surrender or die." Veltros looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was already gone. The other half was scattered, demoralized, and fighting an enemy that was superior in every way that mattered. The consortium had brought its full military might to crush a primitive species. Instead, they had walked into a trap set by an enemy so far ahead of them that the battle had been over before it began. The humans had turned the consortium's own genocide, attempt into the bait for a counterattack that would decide the fate of 5 civilizations. "Admiral," his tactical officer prompted, "your orders?" Veltros closed his 3 eyes. Pride said to fight. Logic said to survive. But what haunted him most was the realization that humanity had been capable of this level of strategic planning. While pretending to be primitive traders and explorers, what else were they capable of? "Signal the fleet," he said quietly, his crystalline body dimming to defeated gray. "We surrender." The humans had won, not just the battle, but the war. And they had done it by being patient enough to let their enemies condemn themselves. Admiral Veltros sat alone in his quarters aboard the human prison ship. They had stripped him of his command, his weapons, and his dignity. But they had left him his memories. And those were punishment enough. Through the transparent wall of his cell, he could see Earth, the blue planet that was supposed to be a graveyard now bustled with activity. Human ships moved in organized patterns, ferrying the evacuated population back to the surface. Cities that he had believed destroyed were revealed intact beneath dissolving holographic projections. It was like watching a magic trick in reverse, seeing how thoroughly he had been fooled. A door opened. General Marcus Chun entered, carrying 2 containers of liquid. He offered one to Veltros. "It's water, clean, not poisoned. I know your species can consume it." Veltros took it with trembling crystalline hands. "Why are you here?" "To talk?" Chun said, sitting in a chair that appeared from the floor. "I've been studying your species for 3 decades. I know more about Velethor culture than most Velethor do. But there's one thing I never understood." He looked directly at Veltros with those unsettling human eyes. Why did you think genocide was the answer? Voltros was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. Because we were afraid. Every simulation, every projection, every analysis pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity would dominate the galaxy within centuries. You breed too fast, adapt too quickly, never give up. We saw you as an existential threat. So you decided to kill 15 billion people, Chun said flatly. Men, women, children, everyone, complete extinction, yes. Voltros felt no pride in the admission. We believed it was them or us. That humanity's rise would mean the end of every other species in the galaxy. Chun took a drink from his container. You were right to be afraid. But you made one critical error. You assumed you understood what you were dealing with. We studied you for 30 years. You studied what we wanted you to see. Chun leaned forward. Every cargo ship that visited your space was gathering intelligence. Every trade agreement included clauses that let us position assets. Every diplomatic meeting let us learn your languages, your cultures, your fears. While you were watching us through satellites, we were living among you, learning everything. How? Voltros asked. How did we not detect your agents? Because you assumed humans couldn't disguise themselves. You never considered that we might use genetic modification, synthetic skin, holographic projection. Some of our best intelligence officers spent years living on your homeworlds. They married into your families, raised your children, attended your ceremonies. And they reported everything back to Earth. The revelation struck Voltros like a physical blow. The cultural exchange programs, the student visas, every single one was an intelligence operation, Chun confirmed. The consortium wanted to understand humanity. We let you think you were succeeding while we infiltrated every level of your society. We know your military codes, your political structures, your economic systems. We know which of your leaders take bribes, which ones have mistresses, which ones doubt the war. Voltros set down his water container. His hands were shaking too much to hold it. Then this was always going to end with our defeat. No, Chun said, and his voice carried a note of something that might have been regret. If you had chosen peace, we would have remained hidden. Protocol Ozymandias was only activated because you chose genocide. You could have lived in ignorance of our true capabilities. You could have traded with us, learned from us, grown alongside us. We would have been good neighbors. But you prepared for war. We prepared for survival. Chun's voice hardened. After the Brelanoth incident in 2087, we learned a hard truth. The galaxy is dangerous, and looking weak makes you a target. So we built our strength in secret while projecting weakness in public. We hoped we'd never need it. You forced our hand? What happens now? Voltros asked. Trials, Chun said simply. You and every leader who authorized the culling will face justice. We've gathered evidence of your planning going back decades. Communications, planning documents, authorization codes. Everything. The galaxy will see what you intended to do. And they'll see what happened when you tried. And then execution. That's up to the courts. But probably yes. Chun stood. There's something else you should know. We're not just trying consortium leadership. We're dismantling your military capability. Every ship, every weapons platform, every piece of technology that could threaten Earth is being confiscated or destroyed. Your civilizations will continue to exist, but under human oversight. You'll be protectorates, essentially. Slaves, Voltros said bitterly. Supervised. Chun corrected. Your people will keep their governments, their cultures, their lives, but your military decisions will go through human advisors. Your weapons development will be monitored. You tried to commit genocide once. We're making sure you can never try again. Voltros thought about his homeworld, proud Velis Prime with its crystal cities and ancient traditions. Now they would live under the shadow of human power, never again able to make their own choices about defense or expansion. You're doing to us what we feared you would do to the galaxy. No, Chun said firmly. We're preventing you from doing to others what you tried to do to us. There's a difference. You came to Earth planning mass murder. We defeated you, and now we're ensuring you can't murder anyone else. If you see those as equivalent, then you understand nothing about humanity." The general moved toward the door, then paused. "There's a debate happening on Earth right now. Some people think we went too far. They say that staging our own destruction, even temporarily, was too cruel. That letting billions believe their loved ones were dead, even for a few hours, was inhumane." He looked back at Valtros. "Others say that anyone who comes to kill our children deserves no mercy at all. That we should have let your fleets die in space and then glassed your homeworlds as payment. Which side are you on?" Valtros asked. "I'm on the side that keeps humanity alive," Chung said. "Everything else is negotiable. You targeted civilians, Admiral, children, hospitals, schools. You came to end us completely. The fact that you're alive to face trial instead of floating frozen in space is more mercy than you deserve." He left, and Valtros was alone again with his thoughts. Through the transparent wall, he watched human ships continue their work. Efficient, organized, precise. Everything about their society spoke of careful planning and long-term thinking. They had been patient enough to hide their true nature for a century. Patient enough to let the consortium condemn itself before springing the trap. He thought about his daughter on Velis Prime. She was safe for now. The humans had made that clear. Civilian populations were not targets. But she would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was the dominant power, where her species lived only because humans chose to allow it. She would know that her father had tried to commit genocide and failed, that his failure had cost the Velither their sovereignty and pride. That would be his legacy. Not the 30 years of careful planning, not the meticulous intelligence gathering, but the moment he looked at a human child and decided that child should die, and in doing so, doomed his own civilization to subordination. A message appeared on the wall display. His trial date had been set. 3 weeks. The proceedings would be broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to any other species that might consider humanity an easy target. Valtros closed his 3 eyes and tried to remember what pride felt like. He had been so certain, so confident in the righteousness of his cause. The simulations had been clear. Humanity was dangerous. Had to be stopped? The simulations had been right. Humanity was dangerous. More dangerous than any species in galactic history. But the consortium had misunderstood what kind of danger they represented. Humans weren't a threat because they would conquer the galaxy through force. They were a threat because they were smart enough, patient enough, and ruthless enough to turn their enemies' own actions against them. The consortium had come to kill humanity in its cradle. But humanity had never been in a cradle. It had been sharpening knives in the dark, waiting for someone to be foolish enough to attack Dot and the Velither. With their pride and their certainty and their genocidal intentions, had been exactly that foolish. The galaxy would remember this. Not as the day the consortium tried to save civilization from the human threat, but as the day the consortium learned that some prey bites back, and when it does, it doesn't just wound. It destroys completely and methodically, with a patience that turns attempted genocide into strategic victory. Valtros opened his eyes and stared at Earth, the blue planet that should have been a graveyard. The tomb he had prepared that became his cage. Instead, in 3 weeks he would face his trial. In 3 weeks, the galaxy would watch him be judged for his crimes. In 3 weeks, everyone would learn the same lesson he had learned too late. Never underestimate humanity. And never, ever mistake patience for weakness. The Galactic Assembly Hall on Nexus Station had never been so crowded. Representatives from 73 species packed the chamber, all wanting to witness the moment that would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. At the center of the chamber, in a specially constructed clear containment field, stood Admiral Valtros and 24 other consortium leaders. The trials had taken 3 weeks. Human prosecutors had presented evidence that was overwhelming in its completeness. Surveillance footage of planning meetings. Intercepted communications discussing civilian casualties with cold calculation. Authorization codes for the bioweapons. Targeting data for the antimatter strikes. Everything documented with the precision of a species that had known this day would come and had prepared accordingly. The defense had tried to argue necessity, tried to claim that humanity's potential threat justified preemptive action. But the human legal team had countered with evidence of consortium atrocities. The planning hadn't just been about neutralizing a military threat. The consortium had targeted hospitals, schools, civilian shelters. They had designed their bioweapons to cause maximum suffering before death. This wasn't preemptive defense. This was genocide in its purest form. The judges, selected from neutral species across the galaxy, had deliberated for 2 days. Now they returned with their verdict. On all counts of conspiracy to commit genocide, we find the defendants guilty. On all counts of attempted genocide, we find the defendants guilty. On all counts of crimes against sapient life, we find the defendants guilty. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others protested. Many sat in stunned silence, processing what this meant. The lead judge, an ancient being from a species that had witnessed empires rise and fall, raised an appendage for silence. The sentence is death by cellular disintegration, to be carried out immediately. However, we note that the final decision on sentencing lies with the injured party. The human delegation may speak. General Marcus Chun rose from his seat. He had aged visibly in the past months, the weight of command and victory both taking their toll. He walked to the center of the chamber, standing just outside the containment field that held Veltros and the other condemned. "The human race has lost much," Chun began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Not in lives, thanks to our preparation, but in innocence. We spent a century hiding, lying, pretending to be something we weren't. We lost the chance to join the galactic community honestly. We lost the ability to trust that our neighbors wouldn't try to kill us in our sleep." He looked at Veltros. "But we also gained understanding. We learned that the galaxy is not safe. That there are species who will choose murder over coexistence. That looking weak makes you a target." Chun turned to address the assembly. "So here's what humanity has decided. The consortium will face justice, but not death. Not yet. We're commuting their sentences to life imprisonment. They'll spend their remaining years in cells, thinking about what they tried to do, thinking about how badly they failed." Veltros felt something unexpected. Relief mixed with shame. Life imprisonment was mercy he didn't deserve, and he knew it. Chun continued. "But the consortium civilizations themselves face a different fate. As of today, all 5 species are now under human protection. Their militaries are disbanded. Their weapons development is monitored. Their expansion is controlled. They wanted to prevent humanity from dominating the galaxy through force. Instead, they gave us no choice but to dominate them." The assembly chamber exploded with reactions. Some delegates stood in protest. Others nodded in agreement. The galactic community was splitting before everyone's eyes. Some siding with humanity's right to defend itself. Others fearing human dominance. A Chromath delegate pushed forward, his massive form shouldering through the crowd. "This is tyranny. You've made slaves of 5 civilizations. We've prevented future genocides," Chun corrected. "The consortium showed us what they're capable of when they have military freedom. They targeted civilians, children. They came to exterminate us completely. We're ensuring they never have the capacity to try that again with anyone. And who ensures you don't do the same?" a Genva delegate asked telepathically, her mental voice broadcasting to the entire assembly. Chun's expression was granted hard. "You do, all of you. Earth is revealing its full capabilities to the galaxy. Our stealth technology, our weapon systems, our defensive capabilities, everything. We're not hiding anymore. You'll know exactly what we're capable of, and you'll be able to monitor us just as we'll monitor the consortium species." "Why would you reveal your advantages?" another delegate asked, genuinely confused. "Because we don't want to rule through fear and deception anymore," Chun said, and for the first time his voice carried a note of weariness. "We spent a century hiding. It was necessary, but it was exhausting. We want to be part of the galactic community, but we want to be part of it honestly. You'll know our strength." You'll know what happens to species that target civilians. And hopefully you'll choose to be friends instead of enemies. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. The planet was still recovering from the staged destruction, but life had returned to normal with remarkable speed. Cities were being rebuilt, this time without the need for elaborate holographic disguises. The underground facilities were being converted to museums, monuments to the century-long deception that had saved humanity. We're opening Earth to diplomatic relations with any species that wants them, Chun announced. We're sharing some of our technology for peaceful purposes. Medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, agricultural improvements. We'll help you. But any species that threatens humanity or our protectorates will face the full might of our military capabilities. Your protectorates? A delegate from the Outer Rim asked. The consortium species? Not just them, Chun said, and the holographic display changed. We're extending protection to any species that wants it. The galaxy has plenty of smaller civilizations that live in fear of their larger neighbors. Species that can't defend themselves against aggressive expansion or military threats. We're offering them a choice. Stay independent and undefended or accept human protection and know that no one will invade your space. The implications rippled through the assembly. Some delegates saw opportunity. Others saw a power grab. But everyone understood what was really being said. Humanity was establishing itself as the galaxy's new dominant military power. And they were doing it by offering protection to those who needed it. This is empire building, a delegate accused. This is preventing another attempted genocide, Chun countered. The consortium tried to kill us because they feared we'd dominate. We're taking control of the situation before someone else tries the same thing. But we're doing it openly, with rules, with oversight. The protectorate species keep their governments, their cultures, their sovereignty in every way except military expansion. They just have to accept that humans will monitor their weapons development and intervene if they target civilians. A small delegate from a minor species stepped forward. Her people had been victims of Chromoth expansion for decades. If we accept this protection, you'll stop the Chromoth from taking our colonies? Immediately, Chun confirmed. Any aggression against a protected species is treated as aggression against humanity. And everyone here now knows what happens to species that attack humans. The small delegate looked at the Chromoth representative. Then back at Chun. My government will want to discuss terms. As will mine, another delegate said, then another. And another. Within minutes, 17 species had expressed interest in human protection. The galaxy was reorganizing itself before everyone's eyes, with humanity at the center not because they had conquered, but because they had proven themselves unkillable and were now offering that strength to others. Valtros watched from his containment field, understanding dawning. The consortium had wanted to prevent human dominance through preemptive genocide. Instead, they had handed humanity the perfect justification to establish exactly the kind of galactic influence they had feared. By trying to kill humanity, they had made humanity the galaxy's defender against genocide. Chun turned back to address the condemned consortium leaders one final time. You came to Earth believing you were saving the galaxy from us. You believed we'd use our strength to conquer, to dominate, to destroy. You were so convinced of this that you tried to exterminate us completely. He paused. You were wrong about our intentions, but you were right about our capabilities. We are as dangerous as you feared. More dangerous, actually. But we're also capable of something your simulations never predicted. We're capable of choosing mercy over revenge, of choosing protection over conquest. He gestured to the assembly chamber where delegates were already forming discussion groups, negotiating the terms of protection agreements. This is the galaxy you've created. A galaxy where humanity is the dominant power, not because we want it to be, but because you forced us to reveal ourselves. You wanted to kill us in our cradle. Instead, you've made us the galaxy's protector. History will remember you not as the ones who saved the galaxy, but as the ones who unified it under human leadership through your own genocidal stupidity.